Imagine having a debt of millions, but instead of worrying, you're actually smiling. Sounds crazy, right? Stick around to the end to find out why the wealthy love this scenario. You see, there's a widespread misconception that all debt is bad. But what if I told you that's not entirely true? What if I told you that debt can actually be a powerful tool, a secret weapon even, in building immense wealth? That's right, folks. The wealthy have a different perspective on debt. They see it not as a burden, but as a leverage, a stepping stone to greater wealth. They understand that the right kind of debt can open doors to opportunities and financial growth. Today, we're going to explore this secret debt strategy of the wealthy. We'll uncover the 5 ways they use debt to their advantage, to build wealth and even make more money. So, are you ready to uncover the secrets of the wealthy and how they use debt to build their fortune? The first secret of the wealthy is leveraging debt to invest. Now, that might sound like a risky move, but it's a calculated risk that the rich are willing to take. You see, they don't just borrow money for the sake of borrowing. They borrow with a purpose, and that purpose is to invest in assets that can give them a higher return. So how does this work? Well, it's all about the concept of leverage. Leverage, in this context, is the use of borrowed money to amplify potential returns. It's like using a lever to lift a heavy object. With the right lever, you can lift something much heavier than you could on your own. The same principle applies to investing. With the right kind of debt, you can invest in assets that you might not have been able to afford otherwise. Now, let's break this down a bit. Say, for example, you borrow money at a low interest rate of 2%. You then invest this money in an asset that gives you a return of 8%. After paying off the interest, you're left with a net return of 6%. That's a pretty good deal, right? But here's the catch. Leverage can amplify your returns, but it can also amplify your losses. If your investment doesn't pan out as you expected, you could end up losing more than you initially invested. That's why it's important to use leverage wisely. The rich don't just leverage any debt. They leverage good debt. Debt that is used to generate income or increase net worth. And there's another key point to remember. When the rich borrow money, they don't use their own personal assets as collateral. They use the assets they're investing in. This way, if the investment goes south, they're not personally on the hook for the losses. So while most of us see debt as a burden, the wealthy see it as a leverage to multiply their wealth. The trick is to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, and to know how to use it to your advantage. The second way the rich use debt is for asset protection. Imagine you're a wealthy individual. You've worked hard to accumulate your wealth, but you also know that this wealth can make you a prime target for creditors and lawsuits. So, how do you protect your assets? The answer lies in using debt strategically. The rich use debt as a shield to protect their assets. It might seem counterintuitive, but let's delve into why this strategy works. When you own properties with a mortgage, it means you have a certain amount of debt tied to that property. Now, if a lawsuit is filed against you and you're required to liquidate your assets, properties with mortgages may be less attractive to creditors. Why? Because the debt owed on the property would need to be paid off first before they see a dime. This provides a layer of protection for the wealthy in case of bankruptcy. This strategy is not about evading responsibilities, but about smart asset management. It's about understanding the legal and financial systems and using them to your advantage. It's about recognizing that debt, when used strategically, can be a tool for wealth preservation, not just wealth accumulation. Now, it's important to note that this strategy requires careful planning and legal advice. It's not about taking on unnecessary debt, but about understanding how to use debt to protect your assets. It's about balancing risk and reward, about knowing when to hold on to your money and when to use it to pay down debt. So, the next time you hear about a wealthy individual taking on debt, don't assume it's because they're in financial trouble. It might just be a strategic move to protect their assets. Indeed, the wealthy know how to use debt to protect their assets, not just to accumulate them. Did you know that debt can also provide tax benefits? This is the third secret of the wealthy. Imagine this. You've taken on debt, but instead of being a burden, it actually helps you save money. Sounds contradictory? But it's not. Here's how the wealthy do it. Firstly, let's understand what tax-deductible interest is. It's the interest on debt that you can subtract from your taxable income, thus lowering your overall tax bill. The trick here is to know which types of debt offer this advantage. For instance, consider mortgages. If you're a homeowner, the interest you pay on your mortgage is usually tax-deductible. That means the more interest you pay, the less income tax you owe. So, in a way, your debt is saving you money. Now, let's talk about investment loans. These are loans you take out to invest in income-producing assets, like rental properties or stocks. The interest on these loans can also be tax-deductible, making them a popular debt strategy among the rich. But remember, it's not just about taking on any debt. The wealthy are strategic about it. They take on debt that not only generates income, but also provides tax benefits. It's like killing two birds with one stone. But here's the catch. Not all debt is tax-deductible. And tax laws can be complex and ever-changing. That's why the wealthy often seek advice from tax professionals to navigate these waters. They understand that knowledge is power, and in this case, it can also be lucrative. Let's also not forget that while tax deductions are beneficial, they should not be the sole reason for taking on debt. As always, it's important to consider the overall financial picture. Debt can be a powerful tool when used wisely, but reckless borrowing can lead to financial ruin. So, there you have it. The wealthy use debt, not just to build wealth, but also to save on taxes. It's a clever strategy, isn't it? Yes, the rich even know how to use debt to reduce their tax bills. The fourth way the rich use debt is to improve their cash flow. Now, this might sound counterintuitive. After all, isn't debt something that takes away from your cash flow? Well, not necessarily. In fact, when used wisely, debt can serve as a tool to free up cash for other investments or expenses. Let's imagine this scenario. You have a sum of money sitting in your bank account. You could use it to buy an asset outright, but then that money is tied up in the asset. It's not liquid. It's not available for you to use elsewhere. But what if you could have your cake and eat it too? This is where debt comes into play. Instead of using all your cash to buy the asset, you use a fraction of it as a down payment, then borrow the rest. You now own the asset, and you still have a substantial amount of your cash left over. This leftover cash can be used for other investments or expenses. Now, the key point here is that the asset you've bought using debt should ideally be income generating. It could be a rental property, a business, or stocks. The income generated from the asset can be used to service the debt, and once the debt is paid off, the income becomes pure profit. This strategy increases your liquidity and financial flexibility. Liquidity, because you now have more cash on hand. Financial flexibility, because you have the ability to respond to opportunities or emergencies as they arise. Keep in mind that this strategy isn't without its risks. It's crucial to manage your debt responsibly. Ensure that the asset's income can cover the debt service, and have a contingency plan in case things don't go as planned. Yet, when executed correctly, using debt to improve cash flow can be a powerful wealth-building strategy. It enables you to leverage other people's money to grow your wealth, while keeping control of your cash. Using debt to improve cash flow, another ingenious strategy of the wealthy. And finally, the fifth secret of the wealthy, using debt for business expansion. The rich understand the power of leverage and aren't afraid to borrow money to expand their businesses. They know that strategic debt can lead to exponential growth. For instance, they might take on debt to invest in new ventures, purchase state-of-the-art equipment, or acquire a competitor. This is not reckless borrowing, but careful, calculated risk-taking. They use the borrowed capital to create new income streams, which not only pays off the debt, but also generates additional profits. It's all about investing in opportunities that yield a higher return than the cost of the debt. Just imagine, instead of one successful business, they now have multiple, all contributing to their wealth. This is how the rich use debt as a powerful tool to expand their empire. So, there you have it. The 5 ways the rich use debt to build wealth and make more money. Let's recap what we've learned today. We've unraveled the secret debt strategies of the wealthy and how they use these strategies to build wealth and make more money. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's strategic, calculated, and executed with precision. Firstly, we discussed leveraging debt to invest. The wealthy understand that borrowing money at a lower interest rate to invest in opportunities that offer higher returns is a smart move. This strategy is about making money work harder, not the individual. The second strategy we looked at is using debt for asset protection. This involves taking on debt to purchase assets that are likely to appreciate over time, such as real estate or stocks. The key here is to invest in assets that generate income and increase in value, effectively making the debt pay for itself. Then, we delved into the world of tax and how debt can be used for tax benefits. By borrowing money to invest, the wealthy can often deduct the interest paid on the debt from their taxable income, reducing their overall tax liability. Our fourth point was about using debt to improve cash flow. By borrowing money at a low interest rate and investing it in high-yield assets, the rich are able to increase their cash flow. This extra cash can then be reinvested to create even more wealth. Finally, we discussed how debt can be used for business expansion. By borrowing money to grow their businesses, the wealthy are able to increase their profits and wealth over time. It's about taking calculated risks to achieve greater rewards. So there you have it. 5 ways the rich use debt to their advantage. Leveraging debt to invest. Using debt for asset protection. Debt for tax benefits. Debt to improve cash flow. And debt for business expansion. Next time you think about debt, remember these strategies of the wealthy. And who knows, maybe you'll start seeing debt not as a burden, but as a tool to build your own wealth. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.